Let's dive into the Atlanta Hawks. It's the fantasy preview series. Undervalued, overvalued players, injury risks, stars. It's all here. Michael Bolton, settle yourself in.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd, and who will come and live a life devoted to chastity, abstinence, and a flavorless mush that I call Root Mom. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms, so welcome to the show. Just a quick note on the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl. We are taking signups at the moment. You can click, or you can look at the QR code on the screen. You can go to the link tree, which you can see there, linktree.lofb bowl. The link is in the description on audio and on video. You can find it on my Twitter feed as well. Not that hard to find. We have filled out 240 head-to-head teams already. That's in the $50 variety. I've got $100 leagues, got some $75 leagues. I've opened up a new lot of $50 leagues. There are Roto leagues available. There are points leagues available. There will be draft and stash. There will be best ball, and there will be some auction ones. The auction ones will be coming for Roto, head-to-head, and points. It'll just be set up a little bit different with those because they're a little bit harder to organize. And I'm just trying to sort out how to do it. So, and you can enter as many of these as you want. By the way, there's no restriction. Hopefully we'll get more people in than what we had last season. I think we will. But we're going to be having a few more different league types. So jump in. Again, the auction ones will be coming. But if you want snake ones, do them. And the auction ones will be on a set time. And the time will be advertised. And that is the time that you go to that. Some people are having questions like, what are the playoffs? How do you have it when there's 60 teams? How does it get down? Well, just think about it this way if you want to think of the playoffs. If you've got a 12-team league with 6 teams in the playoffs, think about how that whittles down. 2 buys, 6 to 4, 4 to 2, 2 to 1. Just times it by 10. 60 to 40 to 20 to 10. And then the 10 teams battle for the grand overall prize. That's how we're figuring it out. The 20 teams are going to buy, the 10 division winners, the next 10 best records in each mini bowl. I know that might sound complicated. I don't think it is. And it's going to take some discussions with me and Fantrax to make sure that it all sorts out. It will. Don't worry. But that's how it's playing out. That is the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl. We don't need to talk about that anymore because what we're talking about now is the Atlanta Hawks. We talked with the reporters and the hosts of the Locked On individual team podcasts for their view on position battles or coaching philosophy changes. Now we're digging into the nitty-gritty fantasy stuff for these squads because that's what we need to do now as we head towards fantasy draft season. The slow drafts for the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl are going to start in a bit under 2 weeks. So there's going to be stuff happening with those really quickly. Let's go in and just have a look at where we're going to start these team preview shows with what I project to be the rotation. Now, closer to the start of the season, we do the 240 game where we dive in more of this in terms of minutes and narrowing down stuff. But this is how I see the Hawks rotation projecting at the moment. If you are watching this on YouTube, left-hand side of the screen, projected starters. Right-hand side of the screen, main projected rotation pieces. So I think Trae Young, obviously, Dyson Daniels, Zaccharie Risacher, Jalen Johnson, and Kristaps Porzingis will start. That one I'm not sure about, but I'm pretty sure that's what they go with. Their 5-man rotation group, Onyeka Okongwu, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, the Duck, Luke Kennard, the Night Watchman, Mohamed Wayuge, and Vit Krejci. I think that'll be their 10-man rotation for the Hawks heading into this season. I think that's how they'll do it. Obviously, you'll have issues with Porzingis and missing games, and that's what he does. So let's talk about the main questions, I guess, here on this team. Is it Porzingis or is it Okongwu starting? I feel pretty confident that Risacher will start and Jalen Johnson won't be the 3. I wasn't sure about that, but talking to Brad Rowland and talking to some other people and reading some stuff, I think that the decision is going to come down to Porzingis and Okongwu. And as much as we might like Okongwu, Porzingis is just a better player. He is a very, very good player. Now, he is going to miss time. I don't think he's going to play back-to-backs, Porzingis. Now, we'll talk about that later on in this show. But I don't think that means that Okongwu is a bad pick because they can play together. And you'll get nearly all 96 of the minutes in the front court going to Jalen, Porzingis, and Okongwu, which leaves very little for Gay. So I do think it'll be Porzingis, and I don't think he's going to play 35 minutes. He might. Maybe they do push that. And my projections for him are pretty conservative at like 29, 30 minutes. But he could play more. I think we're going to see Risacher starting, like I said. And I think he's going to have a decent-sized minutes bump. We're going to talk about him a little bit more later as well. But maybe he doesn't. Maybe he starts and plays 25 minutes. And maybe we do get some options or opportunities for Jalen Johnson to play at the 3. This team's a little bit weird in terms of how the roster's set up. There's a lot of guards. There's a lot of bigs. And that's the last point you can see on my note there about are they going to play very big or are they going to play very small? Because they don't really have any 3s. Who are the 3s on this team? Like they just don't have many guys who are wings. Like, okay, Nickeil Alexander-Walker is sort of wing-sized, and Dyson Daniels is wing, small forward sized. But they're not. They're really sort of guards. Risacher is a 3, but that's it. So it's a weird sort of scenario. I think Mohamed Gay is going to be the 10th guy in the rotation, but does first-round pick Asa Newell overtake him? I doubt it. I think Newell is really quite raw. And they were in a situation where they really didn't have much in terms of backup big men, but they went and signed a couple recently. Well, they signed N'Faly Dante, and then they just recently signed Charles Bassey. So it's that sort of Gay. I don't know if there's going to be much Gay time at center, or there's going to be like, can Newell overtake him and get power forward minutes? That's a deeper league discussion, and these are not situations that we really need to pay attention to unless Jalen Johnson gets hurt or Porzingis gets hurt. But guess what? That happens. And that's how we got situations where Gay was starting last season. Dyson Daniels' steal rate is a big projection question as well, because it's very easy to sit here and go, well, Dyson has always been awesome. He's been pretty good, but last season his steals didn't jump through the roof because he played more minutes. He went from a steal rate of 3 steals per 100 possessions to 4.1 steals per 100 possessions. That's got nothing to do with playing time. His first season in New Orleans, 2 steals per 100 possessions. So, does it hold? Because this is not like he's always been that and he just played more minutes. His steal rate has effectively doubled, more than doubled, since his rookie season. I don't think he averages 3 steals a game again. I don't think he averages 4.1 steals per 100 possessions again. And if that comes down to 3, like it was in New Orleans, is he even worth a top 70 pick? Remembering he played last season, the second half, when Porzingis wasn't there and Jalen Johnson wasn't there. So the steal rate is really quite key on what Dyson is going to produce, I think, for this upcoming season. I want to talk now about some undervalued players. So I might as well just do it. I think Jalen Johnson remains quite undervalued. Now, deliberately, on this screen that you're watching here, I'm not putting up what is their ADP or what is their rank, because you'll watch this now. We might watch it in a week's time, or it might be in 3 weeks' time, and these numbers will adjust. In fact, I could drop this now and every site could have an adjustment to their rankings immediately. So it's more just a sort of an overview. I think Jalen Johnson is currently being, I don't know if misvalued is the correct term, but yeah, undervalued is the term, isn't it? Because he just, I don't know, especially when we're talking about the value that I think he has at the moment. ESPN Category League rankings and the ESPN ADP and his Points League rankings and the ADP on ESPN is just wildly off. I think this is a top 20-ish player. I don't really understand why we're at this situation here where, you know, Jalen is getting picked or getting ranked in the 40s, or what's the point of that? I don't really understand why he's there. It makes no sense to me, and I guess some of it might be injury related. You can see Jalen's numbers there. He played just 36 games, but he played 36 minutes a night. He has 23 usage, and yes, Porzingis will take on more of that usage, but I'm not that worried about it. I think Jalen's got another step forward that he can make for this upcoming season, and I'm very comfortable with him in round 2. I've said this over and over. No problem with that. I think he's a top 20-ish player. Might be top 15, maybe. Probably not, but I'd say top 20 without too much concern in ESPN points, in Yahoo points, and in category leagues. And have a look to see where the things are projected on this team or where those rankings and ADPs are at your particular time or where you're drafting. I think you're going to be able to get some pretty solid value out of Jalen Johnson at this stage. I'm going to come back and talk about some more undervalued guys in a sec. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5 Hour Energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee. I almost said inch there, 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. They are portable, obviously. You've seen a little 5 Hour Energy, how small they are. You can stick them in your pocket, stick them in your glove box, stick them in your car, stick them in your bag, wherever it is, and you need that boost, you can have it because they can be carried around. Big taste in a tiny shot. Take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. Enough with boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade. With 5 Hour Energy shots, get the favorites that you love or be bold. And try something new in-store or online at 5hourenergy.com or at Amazon today. We're here talking about the Atlanta Hawks and previewing their season from a fantasy point of view. Jalen Johnson, I do think is probably the big undervalued guy on this squad. There's a couple of other ones who do come up to me as potential options to have in that sort of a category here. And one of them is Dyson Daniels. And this is, again, it's all going to be sort of dependent on how the sites are ranking. Because at the moment, Dyson Daniels' rank on ESPN for category leagues is a comical 92. Like, that's insane. I don't like taking Dyson Daniels at certain high spots. Like the 35 for him on Yahoo feels maybe a little high. I think his points rank on ESPN at 46 is bang on. I think that makes sense. I think that in a points league, I'm definitely not taking Dyson at that ADP of 37. I'm not interested in that. But I think that him in the 90s makes no sense. So just watch that. To me, he's like a 4th round guy, Dyson Daniels, in terms of category leagues. But if we're talking, and by 4th, I should be more clear on this. I'm talking about like in the 40s for category leagues. For points leagues, I think we've got to look more in the 50s. ESPN, you can go a little bit higher than Yahoo, but that's about where I think he sits. The other name on this list is the man that we just don't know where he sort of goes in terms of role, but Onyeka Okongwu. Now, I do think that there's been the way that some of the ranks for him have come out at the moment, it's too aggressively down. Now, Okongwu only played 28 minutes a game last season. He was still a top 90 player. In points leagues, he was 79th in category leagues. He averaged 13 and 9. And he didn't even get to a block a game. So he's 24. He had 18 usage. He wasn't doing it on a bunch of outlier stuff. Yeah, his free throws can sort of go back and forward, and that can be, I guess, a little bit of a pressure point on Okongwu, but like he's ranked at 97 on Yahoo. I'm very happy with that. His Fantrax ADP at 71. That's not pushing it, but that's about right. But he's ranked 127 on ESPN. And for category leagues, I love that. On ESPN for what's his name? Okongwu's points league rank on ESPN, we're talking about a different story because he's ranked at 69 giggity. And that's too high. And that's where all of the differences in formats is really important. ESPN category rank, 127. ESPN points rank 69. So there's a very clear miscommunication there because he's a better category league player than points league player. And when you go into your draft, someone might say, man, Okongwu is a great deal. But if you go into an ESPN points league draft, he's not. Like, that's a terrible deal at 69. You don't want that. I'm not saying that he's a bad player or anything, obviously, but that's just not, there's no value in that. There's nothing where you got to target him. But if he's sitting at the back end of a draft in a category format, then yeah. In both of Yahoo formats, points and categories, I do think there is value there in Onyeka Okongwu. And I think that that's obviously pretty interesting in terms of being a target, because I think what he can do as a baseline is strong, but then there is the added bonus of what happens if Porzingis or when Porzingis misses time. In terms of overvalued guys, there's only one guy that I do want to quickly mention. This is not not one that's going to matter for most of you, but I'm not just catering to standard leagues here. We are going a little bit deeper with some of this stuff. I don't know why Nickeil Alexander-Walker is positioned where he currently is with a rank of 132. I don't get it. If I'm in a standard league, that's pointless. I'm not sure the upside there. And even in a non-standard, like a deeper format, you're just going way too early. I don't really know how Nickeil Alexander-Walker is producing enough in categories or points, because Yahoo's rankings are combined, obviously, to make that make sense. So in a standard league, that's a flyer zone, and you don't want him as a flyer. In deeper leagues, that might be your 9th pick. And that's an insane pick, I think, of Nickeil Alexander-Walker there. So it just doesn't really add up to me. So that's one of those ones. Again, this is not going to matter for most of you, but I don't really see it for Alexander Walker in that spot. I do want to focus on, this is a segment we're going to do on all these team previews, the guys that I say stars, right? Players that can be top 50 players. You might have a different definition of fantasy stars, but I think if you can be a top 50 guy, you feel really good about them, you're never going to be in a decision where, do I start this guy today? Do I bench this guy today? They're going to be the drivers of your team. I think there's 4 of them on this team. And Okongwu might be an outsider to get there. I'll quickly start with Trae Young because he's a tough one for me. His ADP on Yahoo is currently 13. His ESPN ADP is 14. His Fantrax is 11. So he does go in the first round a lot. I think that his value in points leagues is pretty strong. I think he's a top 10 points league guy. I'm a little... And you know that I don't subscribe to a straight 9-cat ranking formula that will tell you that he was 50th. I think that's garbage, right? I don't think that's true. But I am a little concerned with the way that I've been rolling my rankings with the formulas and adjustments that I make, that Trae Young is being a little overvalued. My formula has him out in the back of the second round, right? So is that realistic that he's there? I'm not sure. But again, we base so much of what we view and value in players on traditional formulas and formats that, I don't know, I think the impact of his free throw percentage, much like I think the negative impact of Giannis's free throw percentage, and that's part of the thing that the Durant formula adjusts, I think that can be overvalued, the negative and positive impacts. I think they're overstated, more to the point. And yes, it is very hard to get assists, or harder to get assists this season. That's true. You lose Tyrese Halliburton and Damian Lillard out of the top of the draft, plus DeJounte Murray and Kyrie Irving. Look, these are high-level point guards not there. It's harder to get assists. But also remember, if it is harder to get assists, you just don't have to get them. You can just say, I'm punting assists. You can do that. So while it might make, and what it will also do, is that if everyone's got the mindset of like, where are my assists? How much for my assists? How do I get my assists? If everyone's thinking that, and they go, well, Trae probably wouldn't do it, but I've got to get him at 6 because there's no assists. Well, if you just say, I'm good, I won't worry about assists, then naturally your turnovers become lower as well, and you focus on the other areas, then Trae's number 1 category, and he will lead the league in assists, I'm pretty sure, this season, then you could just work in other areas. So while I understand the idea of bumping him up because of assist scarcity, but if you're playing a head-to-head format, you just don't need to worry about it if you don't want to. So a universal bump of Trae Young because of assist scarcity, I don't think really works in a head-to-head category discussion because you don't have to go that way. You don't have to approach him in that way. And you're going to have the negatives of a low rebound, low steal, low field goal percentage player whose free throw percentage impact, I think, gets overstated. So, yeah, I like Trae. I've been higher on Trae than others in the past. But again, some of the ways that I'm trying to view things in terms of rankings this season is pushing him lower than I thought it would. So that's something to watch. I've already talked about Jalen Johnson. I think Dyson Daniels can be a top 50 player. More categories than points leagues, but I'm definitely not going into round 3. And the big question, I think, with all of this is now going to be about Kristaps Porzingis, because we know that Porzingis, and you know that I've been a big Porzingis guy. I like Porzingis as a player. I like him as a fantasy contributor. But it's about injuries. He played 29 minutes a game in only 42 games last season. He had whatever the hell was happening with him in the playoffs with the illness. He played through Eurobasket and he was fine. If he plays 33 minutes a night, he'll be a top 16 player. Like per game, without really any question. He averaged 19 and 7 in 29 minutes last game with 1.5 blocks, 2.5 threes. Elite percentages. Like, these are unbelievable numbers. Like, they're unbelievable. But I don't, as much as I think he will very clearly be a top 50 guy per game, I don't think I want to take him there. ESPN's got him ranked 78th for points leagues, which is curious. He's at 45 in category leagues, which, okay, whatever. And then Yahoo's got him at 54. His ADP on ESPN's 88. So there probably is a little bit of value there for Porzingis, but again, there's a lot of risk, and I just don't know how much they're going to need to push him. Will they need 34 a night from Porzingis to be successful? I don't think so. I think he can be at 30. Now, things can change with maybe it's Okongwu that gets hurt, and then instead of relying upon Okongwu as a backup, you've got Bassi or Dante. So then they do have to ride him a little bit more. But at the moment, like, he's in this weird spot where the minutes are going to be interesting. The games played are interesting. There is top 20 to top 30 per game upside, but I'm not sure he even plays enough minutes. I did put him in this sort of star group, but it's far from a guarantee that we are, all excited about Porzingis. And drafting him also depends on what else you do in other rounds. Did you take AD, Zion, LaMelo, Morant, Embiid, Kawhi? You don't want to put them all together? Because while if they all hit, then you win your league. When you've got percentage chances, you know how percentages and probabilities work. If it's a 10% chance of this hitting and you have 5 of those guys, well, it's 0.1 times 0.1 times 0.1 times 0.1. And these are really small numbers for it all to sort of pan out. And that's where you run into some problems. If it pans out, you smash. But it probably doesn't. And that's going to adjust where you value Porzingis. Come back and talk about a few more things for this team. Today's episode, though, is also brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth. It might be 401ks or properties or investments. When you don't have that full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table, and that is why there is Monarch Money. An all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. You can check all of those things in that one place. So if you've been putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. It does the heavy lifting, linking all of your accounts in minutes so you can see the clear data, visuals, get smart categorizations of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That is 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONNBA. So I think we've covered the main 4 guys there, obviously Porzingis, Young, Johnson, Daniels. Let's just go through a few other things on this team that are worth discussing. And I want to just go through the new players that are on this roster. Because obviously Porzingis came across, the cost was not very high. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they signed in free agency, and Alexander-Walker is going to be playing as like a seventh man. I think Okongwu gets the most minutes off the bench, and then Alexander-Walker is the 7th man. Also remembering, 7th man in fantasy for standard leagues, not really worth it, hence why the 130 ranking for him makes no sense. They also brought in Luke Kennard to be that shooter player off the bench. They signed Charles Bassi a couple of days ago. They signed N'Faly Dante to that offer sheet from the Rockets. He was a 2-way guy. He's an interesting player. I wouldn't be surprised if he works into an every night backup center role, especially if Okongwu or Porzingis are hurt. Also, we know that this team, you may not be aware of this, but Kobe Buffkin, first round pick 2 years ago, was traded to the Nets for cash. They needed to get away from him for luxury tax considerations. They had obviously a lot of other guards there, but we want to talk about this team. Their backup point guard position consists of guys who aren't point guards. And that's Alexander Walker and Dyson Daniels. And Luke Kennard. They're not point guards. So that's really interesting. 2-way guy Keaton Wallace. It is an interesting team build. 4 other new guys on this team. Asa Newell, their first round pick. I'm not sure he's going to play much. Their second round pick from last season, Onyeka Okongwu, who broke his foot and wasn't signed. Then played in the G League and was terrible. But he is now on a contract for this season. I don't think that he's going to do much. I guess he is wing-sized. He's more of a point guard-y sort of player, but he's wing-sized. Eli John Ndiaye is on a two-way, and they do have Caleb Houston, who again, he is a small forward size player. I don't know that he makes the roster. In fact, at the moment, I would think that he doesn't, because they've got 20 players under contract at the moment. You can only have 18, which includes 3 two-ways, so 3 of the guys won't make it. One of them is Kobe Johnson. One of them is Lamont Butler, who's on the roster, and I think the other one's probably going to end up being Houston, who doesn't get to stick on the roster. But he could, and they might cut like a Charles Bassey. Maybe that's what they do. But Houston is there at the moment, and yeah, he could just be another one of those shooter types along with Luke Kennard, who subs in and out, almost like a Garrison Matthews bit part replacement player, the way that Matthews has been used in the past. I do want to talk a little bit here about Zaccharie Risacher. Now, when I have the highlight there, or the heading there on that list that says breakout, is that me suggesting that he is going to break out? It's not. I'm not saying that I'm predicting that Zaccharie Risacher is a big breakout player, but I'm looking through this roster. Who's got the potential to be a breakout? And what is a breakout? It's just somebody who just does stuff at a way higher level than they really ever have. Now, he's only got 1 year under his belt, played 25 minutes a night as a rookie, number 1 overall pick, and honestly, for fantasy, was basically unusable all season. And even in the moments where he had good stretches, it was like 1 game, and then like 4 bad ones, and then 1 game. And Quinn Snyder deliberately kept the minutes low. I don't think he's staying at 25 minutes a night. He shot 36% on threes, which is pretty good as a rookie. It was much better second half of the season. Part of the problem with him is the absolute, just complete absence of anything else. Bad rebounds, bad assists, bad steals, bad blocks. Good threes, but bad free throws. Scoring not great on 22 usage. I do think that we could see 5 extra minutes a game. I do think that the free throws might jump, but will he ever pass the ball? Will he ever do anything defensively? With the addition now of Porzingis and a full season of Jalen Johnson, will he get rebounds ever? So while when you look at this roster, I think there is potential for him to be the breakout guy, I don't think it's going to happen. But in saying that, when we're in a standard league draft, and we're talking rounds 10, 11, 12, 13, 11, 12, 13, 14, however you want to frame it, these are the sort of players that I think you should be taking chances on. I think that in all 12-team leagues, Risacher needs to be drafted. Now, when we get to October the 31st, and we're 10 days into the season, and he's playing 26 minutes a night and nothing's changed, I'll be like, all right, move on. But if he comes out, plays 32 a night, starts having a different role in the offense, then I'll be, all right, we're onto something here. Don't think it's going to be a thing. I don't think it's going to be one where we're talking about, wow, what a leap forward, because there's just a lot of holes in that overall game for Risacher. But he's the guy that sort of fits the bill. The 2 major injuries to talk about with this team. Porzingis missed so much time with a knee last season. Started the season slow. It was like it might have been even a foot injury to him, but he's had a lot of knee problems clearer than the illness. But he's fine at the moment. Although, when you've had a lot of knee problems like KP has, you're never fine. Right? So that's always going to lead me to concerns. And the other one is Jalen Johnson ended his season early with the torn labrum, I think it was. It was definitely a shoulder injury. I believe that he is fine to go and ready for the start of the season. So they are the 2 big injury concerns at the moment. They are both ready to go for the beginning of the season. So when you're looking at what Atlanta did last season, especially second half, understand that both of these guys weren't there. Porzingis on a different team and Johnson not available. So when you're looking at Dyson Daniels and you see his second half and his assist rate was up and his usage was up, remember what's getting added in here onto this team that will have an impact on that sort of stuff. The last thing I want to talk about with this Hawks squad is what their schedule looks like. They have the lowest amount of back-to-backs in the NBA, which again, if you are drafting Porzingis, that is a check for you. 13 back-to-backs only. Now, the range of back-to-backs is between 13 and 16 in the NBA, so it's not a huge difference. And when you're talking a difference of 3 back-to-backs over the course of, let's say, a 22-week season for fantasy, or 25 overall, it's not that many. It's 1 back-to-back every 8 weeks difference. Right? So it's not that big of a deal. So while it's annoying to have a good player who will sit back-to-backs have more back-to-backs, and it feels good that if you're drafting Porzingis, he's got league minimum back-to-backs, it doesn't matter. The difference also this season in quality games, based on how I'm judging that, is also, it's very marginal. So I don't think we need to make really many decisions on that. One thing I will be very cautious with, though, if you are using my recommended playoff dates, which means finishing your playoffs on March the 22nd for head-to-head leagues, not finishing your regular season, finishing your playoffs on March the 22nd. The first week of that playoffs, the Hawks have 2 games. I don't care usually about whether someone goes 3-3-3, although that can be a tiebreaker for not taking Shea above Luka, for example, in this sort of setting. I don't normally care about that too much. A 2-game playoff week, I do care about. I do care about that, and that should be a strong tiebreaker when you're considering Trae Young, if this is your playoff schedule, when you are considering to draft Jalen Johnson in particular. Now, when you get to guys like Porzingis or Okongwu, don't worry about it. That's not that big of a deal. That shouldn't be a deciding factor. You can bump them down a little bit because of that, but I think that if you're deciding between, do I want Devin Booker? Do I want James Harden? Do I want Steph Curry? Do I want Cade Cunningham? Whoever these players are you deciding, or do I want Trae Young? If you are running a playoffs like this and there's a 2-game week there, well, I'm not sure that the 2-game week is ideal. Now, of course, you might say, well, that's my playoffs. I'm going to be the best team in the league. I'm going to get a bye in the first round of the playoffs and it doesn't matter. Good for you, if that happens. But a 2-game week for one of your top-end guys can take them from being a top 10 player to being the 70th best player over that time frame. And while you have to get to the playoffs first, that is true, we're not talking about skipping over Trae Young at pick 10 so that you can go out there and draft Mike Conley in that spot. Right, that's not what we're talking about. Oh, he's still so good. Yeah, he is, but what if I took Devin Booker there? What if I took James Harden there? The drop-off difference, which might literally not even be a drop-off, then they play 4 games versus 2, and I don't have those guys' schedules memorized off the top of my head because I'm doing a Hawks show. That is where that impact comes. That is where that decision needs to be made. And the same might even go with Jalen Johnson. Do you care? That 2-game week, there might be someone else in that spot who you deem, if you're ever sitting there going, don't take the guy with the 2-game week. If it's like, this guy's very clearly better, take him. But if you ever just I don't know, start to know and just don't do that. I think we've covered most of the guys on this team. I didn't really talk much about Vic Krejci. He'd be someone to watch if they did lose, say, Risacher for a period of time. And in situations where he plays 30 minutes, he becomes definitely 12-team streamable. And I think he's going to be a really solid 20-minute-a-night rotation guy, irrespective. But this team is relatively top-heavy through the top 7 guys. And there is some sizable drop-offs after that for this Atlanta Hawks squad. And that is a fantasy preview for the Hawks. I think I've covered all the pertinent information on this team. I think Trae Young might be getting overvalued. I think Jalen Johnson is undervalued. I think Porzingis is a great pick if you get him at the right spot. I think Okongwu is undervalued currently, and I think you've got to be very cautious about how you're seeing Dyson Daniels and where the sites are pre-ranking him in terms of how you're viewing him. He's not a top 30 guy, but he's also not 90th. And then you see how things go with that bench group, and then there is the potential as a late round player on Zaccharie Risacher. I think that's probably the right way, or at least in my head at the moment, of approaching it. Remember, Locked On Fantasy Basketball Bowl signups, we're taking them at linktree/AlloFB Bowl. The link is in the description. The link is in the show notes. The link is everywhere. Join up. We've filled up at least 400 spots already. There's a lot more to go. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up. Give it a hype if you're watching on the YouTube app. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.